What's that I hear you say? 3.9 degrees? Mussolini making everything worse? Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen? Some guy chucking fruit off the top of a building and being lauded as a scientific genius? We can only be in one place. We're in Pisa, in Italy. Let's go and have a look around. Hello, you lovely people, and welcome to perhaps one of the most recognisable buildings in the face of planet Earth. We're in Pisa, in Tuscany, in Italy, and behind me is the Campanile Pendente, the Leaning Tower, which at sunset looks absolutely stunning. Now, this is the birthplace of Galileo Galilei.
Galileo Galilei.
Didn't do the fandango, apparently. Galileo Galilei, a man who gave the world so many different things. Most famous, perhaps, for his operatic Bohemian Rhapsody number. One of the things he did was he came down to this tower. I don't know if he came down during the golden hour, like we are enjoying right now, but he went to the top. And he did some weird science experiments that in the day I think people probably thought, nah, you're wrong there, boy. But he was proved right. And this is why he's the father of modern science. He went up the top and he chucked objects off. Lead, cotton balls, lead balls. And his theory was that even though one is obviously heavier than the other, they're going to hit the ground at the same time. And I'm sure everyone around him poo-pooed that idea. But sure enough, mixture of physics and gravity,
Science.
and all those things I never studied at school. They hit the ground at the same time. And this is why Galileo is the genius. Now, he did that experiment in 1564. And they still say that the ghost of Galileo walks around the walls of the tower behind me. So one of the ways you can tell that someone's a total genius is that 400 years after they die, grown men fly into outer space to test your theory. And sure enough, you're right. Apollo 15 in 1971 flew to the moon, and Commander David Scott tested to see if Galileo's theory was right in what is a virtual vacuum. And you know what? He was.
Not quite yet. I haven't put the solar wind in yet, but I will shortly. I want to watch this. Joe, you have a good picture there. I've got
Beautiful picture, Dave.
Well, in my left hand I have a feather. In my right hand a hammer. And I guess one of the reasons we got here today was because of a gentleman named Galileo a long time ago who made a rather significant discovery about falling objects in gravity fields. And we thought that where would be a better place to confirm his findings than on the moon. And so we thought we'd try it here for you. The feather happens to be appropriately a falcon feather for our falcon. And I'll drop the two of them here and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time. How about that? Which proves that Mr. Galileo was correct in his findings.
And that all happened because a guy went to the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And I haven't even talked about telescopes and Jupiter. It's been standing here since the 13th century. And I've just climbed its 270 steps, or however many there are.
Way too many steps.
And they felt a lot more on the way up than they did on the way down.
But I'm halfway down. And I haven't enjoyed it. One of the really weird things about the Leaning Tower of Pisa is its leaning. When you're used to walking on reasonably flat surfaces, and if you're standing on top of something very high, you expect the surface to be reasonably flat. And it's only 3.9% incline. Only. But it literally feels like I'm walking downhill. Got off as soon as I could. I was quite brave. When I get back home, I tell stories about, oh yeah, I wasn't scared, I was terrified. There you go, story of my life. Locked in the tower for my crimes. And that's it, I'm almost down. I've just waved at my long-suffering wife, who skipped this insanity, and I'm not even panting at all. I mean, I practically had a heart attack on the way up here, but on the way down it feels much easier. I look at these stairs, way too steep, way too slippy. You would have thought that the great architects of 700 years ago would have built something that lasted a little bit longer. The stairs are all dipped and worn out. It's appalling. And we're almost out. Look, light.
So here we are in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which, having just been to the top, it is most certainly leaning. Almost 300 steps to the top. Takes about 10 minutes to climb. It's the weirdest feeling walking on what should be a flat surface, only to find out you feel like you're skiing down a black run. It's a beautiful, beautiful doorway. Lord knows who those people are. When we were on the top, my lad pointed out one of the interesting things just around the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and I was clinging on for dear life, to be fair. I didn't spot anything. But he said that this is Romulus and Remus, a statue dedicated to Romulus and Remus. I just thought it was wolf cubs. I could see, but there you go. So just in case, like me, you weren't around in 753 BC, those two little cute twins up there were rescued by that she-wolf alongside the River Tiber. They managed to survive and were raised on wolf's milk, so they obviously weren't lactose intolerant, probably not Gen Z types. And then, when they grew up, they decided to build a city. Now, like all brothers, it was going great until one day they had a bit of an argument and Romulus killed Remus. So, yeah, brothers. And that is why the city is called Rome and not Rheims. But the area around the Leaning Tower is absolutely stunning, and that tower most certainly is leaning. Now you would think that the Leaning Tower of Pisa, one of the most famous buildings in the world, would be the most leaning-y tower in all of the world, but it's actually not. There's a tower over there in Saxony, in Germany, that leans even more than this one. This is leaning at 3.9 degrees. Which, when you're on the top like I was, you feel every one of those 3 and every one of those 0.9 degrees. But the Surhausen bell tower in Saxony is leaning at 4.9 degrees. Now, I will never be going up that tower. No idea where it is. That's 3.9. I don't want to feel 4.9. Now, of course, one of the problems that the poor people of Pisa have to face is that they come into town and the place is flocked with crazy tourists making crazy hand gestures where they hold up the tower. One of the other problems the poor Pisans have to face is that they're not allowed to go up this tower because it's bad luck. And they're not allowed to ring the bells either. Now, this town doesn't need any more bad luck. They've got a bell tower that's fallen over itself. They don't need any extra help. So, if you're superstitious and you're Pisan, pay attention. I was a young man once. I know it's hard to believe. Back in the 1980s, there was a series of movies called Superman. And one of the things that Superman did was he straightened the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Not bad. Probably easier for him than getting changed in a telephone box. But for all you Marvel fans out there, this is where it happened. And to be fair, I'm here. It's not straight, so it wasn't that successful. Now, I'm not one for fascist dictators. But Mussolini came along in the 20s, and in 1934 he had the bright idea of trying to straighten out the tower. Makes a lot of sense. There was nothing else to do. Abyssinia needed invading in a couple of years, and he had a bit of time on his hands. So they drilled holes at the base of the tower with a view of straightening it up. And as you can imagine, like most totalitarians, they come in with bright ideas and everything got worse. So, surprise, surprise, the tower actually started leaning even more. Note to self, never elect a fascist dictator, and if you do, by mistake, never let them get involved in planning issues. Now, Pisa's a very old town with a lot of history. In 1288, things had gone very wrong in the city of Pisa. Famine, price rises, food shortage. And somehow, the hero of this story, or the anti-hero, Ugolino, found himself murdering the nephew of an archbishop. Not particularly advisable. The archbishop accused Ugolino of treachery and locked Ugolino up in the tower with 2 of his sons and his grandson. He was locked in the Muda Tower, and the keys to the tower were thrown in the Arno River that flows through the town. Ugolino and his sons and grandson were starving. Now, there's 2 versions of the story. The one where they probably just starved to death, and the other one, told by Dante in the Divine Comedy. A story recounted by Chaucer in the Monk's Tale, where Ugolino ate his own children. I don't know what happened. Chances are he just starved to death. Maybe he did eat his own children. It's quite dark. Now let's take a short walk through Pisa, from this tower over to Ugolino's tower, and see what we can find. So we're here in the Piazza dei Cavalieri, Horseman's Square. Here in Pisa, night has fallen, and heading towards the Muda Tower. And it's a rather majestic square, as you can only expect in Italy. Let's have a little spin around. Quite a sight. Look at it there, absolutely beautiful. But somewhere, right behind me there, is the Muda Tower, where Ugolino Gherardesca may well have died tragically, may well have starved to death at the behest of Archbishop Ruggieri. Or maybe he eked it out a little bit longer and ate his own children. Depends whose version of the story you believe. Dante gets to tell the story the way he wants. In his masterpiece, the Inferno, which of course is Italian for hell. Dante recounts in the Inferno how Ugolino is banished to hell and spends all eternity eating upon the flesh of Archbishop Ruggieri. And Auguste Rodin wrote in To Me and You, was inspired by Ugolino and turned him into a piece of sculpture. But here it is, the Muda Tower. And somewhere in here, the screams would have cried out, starving children, starving grandchildren, and Count Ugolino Gherardesca locked up for killing a nephew of the Archbishop Ruggieri, as a lady takes a dog for a walk. Everywhere you look, there's a story somewhere in the walls of this place. Part of me hopes that the man just starved to death. Everything else is way too grim. Poor Ugolino. And there he is, Ugolino della Gherardesca. Conte Ugolino. Who knows what really happened here? As the bells ring in the distance, on a dark and kind of cold Pisa night, this has been Heaven and Hell Travels. Thanks so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, you might well like this one too. So click on it, see if you do. Thanks again.